Welcome to the Coast to Coast podcast, brought to you by Play Picks and the Lines, coming to you from the West Coast. Josh Lander, joined by my guy Nate Weitzer on the East Coast, and we are rolling along with some game twos here, Nate, on a Tuesday night slate. We've got the Dubs and the Memphis Grizzlies still in Memphis, going for game two here, as we say, and then Boston down 1-0, taking on Milwaukee. We'll kick things off with that game here, as the Bucks will look to take a 2-0 lead if they can. A couple guys potentially a little banged up on Boston, but there are some things that we'd like to look at in this one. A few player props and best bets as well. So make sure you are liked and subscribed to that page so that we can continue to follow along with you in these NBA playoffs as we bring you each and every playoffs game. And as always, if you do still need a FanDuel or a DraftKings account, head to ftpicks.com or dkpicks.com. Find those listings in your area, such as what we've got for tonight. Nate, let's jump into these two games here.
Oh, the volatility of the three-point shot. That is what we're looking at for Boston, Milwaukee here. Could go a lot of different ways depending if those hit. But yeah, the Celtics pretty much the same spread as game one at -4.5. Kind of surprising after they got handled by the defending champs. The total has dropped only 2.5 points to 215 after a really defensive-oriented game. A couple things to watch there. Yeah, and then the other game that we'll get to here, Warriors are -2, -1.5, depending where you can get it. At Memphis, that total crept up a little bit to 228. And my first thought is I want the under in that West Coast game. I think Memphis kind of played an outlier game and is not going to score that much. The Warriors can be held in check in Memphis. So maybe what you actually want to tease here is the Bucks up to 8 with that under in the second game. I mean, I think you got to feel pretty good about the Bucks covering 5-6 points at least. I mean, and potentially just winning this game. It just, again, it depends. How are the Celtics going to shoot from three? Because they played into Milwaukee's strategy. What we thought kind of coming into the series that Milwaukee was just going to dare the guys who had been shooting about 40% from three in these playoffs or higher, to beat them and just allow all these threes, allow nothing at the rim, which is what they do. And the Celtics, let alone those guys like Smart and Horford and Grant Williams. I mean, Jalen and Jason couldn't hit a three. And that's the bigger deal. I mean, it's just an outlier game in terms of them just playing in a fog. I'm playing an emotional letdown. Let's look at it like that. I mean, they just had this great like breakthrough series, like Jordan beating the bad boy Pistons, swept them out of the playoffs. You know, it's hard not to feel in their mind like they had all the momentum in the world. And then the defending champs come in feeling disrespected and really brought a finals caliber effort on the defensive end. The intensity was there from the opening tip. The Scott Foster and his crew were willing to ref it like a finals game and let the hand checking go on both ends. Celtics were not as physical as the champs, and they got owned in the paint. And then the interest, yeah, I mean, shot 60% of their field goals from three, not trying to mix it up down there. 0.0 points from the mid range game. Like these are things that really have to be addressed. I mean, Tatum. And it's on Tatum. He's the leader of this team. He has to be able to get himself going a little earlier. I mean, he finished with 21 points. He had a truly atrocious offensive game, though. I mean, missed like several layups in the first quarter. Me and you were both sweating that over. If he just made a layup, we would have had the first quarter over. But, you know, not to get too bitter about this. I mean, I think we're looking at a great defensive series here. I mean, if Boston can hold Giannis to 9 for 25 from the floor, they're going to do a better job adjusting so that he doesn't get 12 assists. They're going to do a better job in rotation. I mean, it's such a well-coached team. There's no way they're just going to be like, we're taking away Giannis and living with, you know, all these other guys shooting threes. At the same time, Milwaukee's three-point shooting is going to regress a little bit. Boston's is going to come up a little bit in the home environment. And yeah, it is kind of an unpredictable thing in the sense that if a few of those threes start falling in the first half, that Boston Garden is going to be very, very loud, and we could kind of have a runaway situation. I don't think the Bucks are the type of team to just fold on the road. But I think that's what that's the Celtics requirement for the path to victory is you got to hit some threes early. Milwaukee's giving you these threes. Can they knock them down is the question.
Yeah. And I mean, honestly, I still do lean to that under, even if they do hit a few more threes in this next one. But at the same time, I think the reason and the reason I think that to start with on the Milwaukee side really is, I mean, Giannis had a Giannis game, a Giannis playoff game, and actually not really a great Giannis offensive output, at least in the scoring. 24 points, but the 9 for 25 from the field, that's what you're looking for. You're looking for him to sort of force things, and the recipe for that sort of pull away in the first half by hitting some threes. The other part of that recipe is make Giannis force shots. Make the pressure of the crowd and your scoring put pressure on Giannis to make him feel as though he needs to force things and drive into the lane into 2 or 3 guys and throw up a bunch of bad shots. And he did that in the first half, by the way, where his field goal percentage was even worse than it was for the game, as he did get a lot better in the second half around the rim. So they had that sort of teed up for them, did Boston, if they hit some of their shots. The other thing we have to remember is the shots that Tatum and Brown were missing. Brown was the one who somebody was in his head outside of, there was ghosts somewhere around there, because it seemed like he was hesitant to pull. He wasn't driving into the lane. He was trying to take threes. And when he would up fake on a 3, this happened like 3 times in the first half. He'd up fake on a 3 and then he wouldn't drive to the hoop. He would sidestep and try to take another 3. And it was like, dog, that's not your game. Like, just, you're huge. Go to the rim downhill. That's what they want. That's what everybody on that team talks about, is when Jaylen Brown is going downhill, that's when they're at their best. They couldn't get to the rim. And once again, that's not a coincidence. That's by design, right? Those 3-pointers, they need to go in. But at the same time, like, if you're not getting anything at the rim, those 3-pointers need to go in all game with consistency. And there were a few spurts here and there where the C's hit a couple threes in a row. And it seemed like, okay, this game's within 7 or 8 points. Now they have a shot. Then guys like Drew Holiday were coming down on the other side and playing super well on offense. And he's been a big reason for them, not just the 3 for 5 from 3, but it's when he's hitting those threes to start the game, to come out and get a lead. And then the other couple that he hit late to make sure that they could continue to stay ahead by nearly 10 points. And look, I think they can continue to play this level of defense. You saw what they did against Giannis. It wasn't like they got lucky that he was putting up some bad shots. It was a combination of Papa Al and Time Lord. And if Rob Williams, Time Lord, needs to be healthy for this to continue, because when the two of them were guarding him for a combined like 9.5, 10 minutes, we're talking about 6 points, 4 assists, and just 2 for 13 from the field with 4 turnovers. That's what they did to Giannis, the two of them. As soon as he got switches, it was over. And he got switches on a couple guys too many times, including Marcus Smart, and company. That, look, as good as Derek White and Marcus Smart have been on defense on the perimeter for them, especially at the point of attack, they're not going to be a matchup for Giannis standing at the free throw line. And that's where he got a number of those points. He even started to have that turnaround jumper going. So my main point here is that we didn't talk enough about the Bucks defense. And I think the Boston defense did its job for an under, which we can continue to feel good about in this series. And it did its job to give itself a chance to win on the other side. 101 points to the Milwaukee Bucks when they're playing at a pace of nearly 101. It's impressive, right? You keep them to 100, straight up 100 offensive efficiency. They did their job all over the floor. They got out rebounded, which was a little bit concerning, but come on, man, you got Bobby Portis in there now for Chris Middleton, playing a lot of those minutes, especially in the first half. You've got 3 nearly 6'10" and above guys that are all bangers down low with him, Lopez and Giannis. So yeah, of course they're going to continue to feel really good about the rebounding battle, but they wouldn't have nearly as many rebounds if there weren't so many missed threes. And I just think it starts with Boston not settling nearly as much, because they got plenty fine shots, but I think that they're going to be going to the rim a bit more. They can't get outdone in the paint to that degree, even if they're not able to win the paint battle, because that's really where Milwaukee excels on defense. I think they're just going to need to take a lot higher percentage of their shots from inside the 3-point line and give up a good 3 for a great 2 and see how that goes, which once again still makes me feel really good about an under, because I don't think this pace gets faster than the 100.5 that it was in game 1.
Yeah, I think you can target the under, but I think I would stick to our guns about the over in the first quarter, because the Celtics are going to come out with a renewed focus here in terms of executing on offense. I mean, there are ways to exploit this Milwaukee defense, and it's not just make or miss threes. It comes down to the X's and O's. And Milwaukee, 7 turnovers in the first quarter, 6 the rest of the game. So, I mean, there's a lot of room for improvement on their end as well in terms of coming out strong. We talked about it. I mean, second highest scoring team in the first quarter. I think we'll see a more free-flowing game early, but I do still like the under for the game because the Celtics MO and in these playoffs has been in the fourth quarter, things tighten up. Yeah, you talk about Jalen tentative. I mean, yeah, it always seems like that to me. It wasn't uncharacteristic. It's why I don't really trust him to be a 25-point scorer every night because he just has so much explosiveness and so much options that he doesn't seem to know what to do with it at times. And it's always like kind of like Embiid, who still scores a ton, but it's just like you look like you're like falling over your skis, like you're just like off balance. You're so athletic. Anyway, I mean, the turnovers is what this hinged on. I mean, Milwaukee scored 27 points off 18 turnovers. It's another correctable error. I mean, they got 27% of their points off that. That's something Boston didn't do at all against Brooklyn when they had poise. I mean, when they had much easier time getting to the rim. So I think some of that is just like the shock value. Again, the shock value, the emotional letdown of suddenly playing a tough physical team that plays well together and plays well on the defensive end. And suddenly there's hands everywhere and there's nothing at the rim as easy as you were getting against freaking Brooklyn. I mean, I think the Celtics will do a much better job of adjusting for that. And then that does help the under down the stretch because if you're not turning it over and allowing Giannis to get out in transition, they did a great job. Like you said, when they were able to set up in half court, put Horford or switch Rob Will onto him, they were able to limit this Bucks offense. So I think, yeah, maybe if you like the over early, like we're saying, and the under late, that's a great live betting opportunity. And I do think we'll see a close game down the stretch. So if I had to pick the spread, yeah, I would take Milwaukee and the 5 points again, maybe buying 1.5, or just, yeah, I would expect another close finish for sure, or a close finish tonight, rather than that kind of the Celtics letting it slip away in the third quarter again.
Yeah, and we could have had a closer game in a number of different areas. There were a couple wide open spots for the Seas to just hit their shots. They didn't. It's like you said, it's not just them making or missing shots, but in this game, that's all it was because they did a lot right in other parts. But it is those turnovers as well, where if they're not going to be that efficient on offense or even have that great of a shooting night, and we know they're not going to be getting to the rim with too much ease, then it is important, that they're not turning the ball over and wasting possessions. One last couple of guys. I mean, we're not in a good position right now to be taking any player props, as there's not too much up for us when we're recording this. We will have a player props video for the day at any rate, so that we can get some of those to you. But I am going to be continuing to look at Grayson Allen. He got another 28 minutes. He's going to continue to get minutes. So is Bobby Portis, and those are just the two guys that look. I mean, Drew Holiday and Giannis. Obviously, you want to see what their props are at if you feel good about it. If Drew's are less than 20, or they'll probably be close to 20.5, 22.5 around there for points, you can feel good about it. His rebounds have been very impressive as well. So that's where I look for Drew, sort of like all of the stats, not just points. But then the two guys on the Bucks that I would eye, in lieu of Middleton's points are Grayson Allen with another 8 3-point attempts, and as well as Bobby Portis, who, is not scared of shooting from anywhere at any point at this point in his career. So plenty to look at there.